Hi, this is Phillips, and I'm going to show you how I hand build a hanging planter with a built-in drainage catch. I'm starting with a basic pinch pot that I like to first open up with a stick I made from scrap wood, so unfortunately it's the only tool in this video you can't buy unless you want to give me a lot of money for it because it's my favorite tool. Fortunately, you can just pinch the form out by hand, working from the center out. And I'm just using my hand to brace the outside of that pot when I beat into it to kind of shape it. Keep those edges wet and smooth so it doesn't crack on you. And there's our first piece. I'm going to trace the opening of this onto my banding wheel, which you can purchase from Clay King. This is a ball bearing banding wheel with a laminate top. I've had these in several sizes for years now. I use them every day, love them. I'm going to pinch out the rim for this pot to give it some height, and the line I marked on the banding wheel is going to show me how far out to pinch this donut of clay I've made. When I pinch this out, I'm keeping the height a bit compressed so the form grows out and not so much up. And then I'm going to keep pinching it on the banding wheel until it's almost as wide as that line I've traced, flipping it around every so often so that the rim stays even thickness with the rest of it. And when it's almost wide enough, I'm going to pinch out the bottom edge to meet that line because I want the opening of my pot to taper in a bit. Keep those edges refined, people. I always keep a large bucket nearby to keep most of the clay off my hands because the more dry clay I have building up on my hands, the more clay dust is flaking off into the air and I'm breathing it in, and that's not good. Check out that very worn out and loved mud tool sponge. This is the part of the pot that's going to catch any excess water that drains through the soil and would otherwise drip onto your floor or sit on the bottom of the pot and potentially cause root rot for your plant. I like making really organic forms, but you can apply this same concept to your own style really easily. I want a kind of a cone shape for this piece, so I'm going to go in with the back of my stick and gently beat that clay into submission. I let these pieces set up to a soft leather hard state and wrap them up so I could finish them the next day, and now I'm going to put them together. I don't use slip when I score, I make slip as I score with a steel feather brush tool. I love this tool because I can bend the wires wherever I want them, and when I dunk it in water, it holds a bit of it and applies it right where I'm scoring, so I can make it nice and muddy. I do that with both sides that I'm joining. Give your parts a good wiggle when you stick them together. I'm just smoothing the extra slip out that I squished into the crack. I use a damp brush to clean up everything on my pots. There's a ton of brushes to choose from on Clay King too, and a lot of really good brush sets. More edge shaping and refining. Then I'm going to roll out a small coil and use it to hide and reinforce the inside of that joint I've made. I want the edge of the outside, but I want a smooth inside, and this will strengthen the hold. But I'm going to keep my fingers pressed against the outside seam so that I don't push it back open from the inside. Shaper tool. I love the shaper tool. I like the bumps and lumps you get on a pinch pot, but if you want a smoother surface on your hand-built pots, especially if you make larger coil pots, this thing is so handy. It'll help you thin out the walls and refine your form really quickly. This shaper tool is made by Mud Tools. You can smooth that texture right out with a rib tool. This is the very flexible red rib, also from Mud Tools, and is my favoriteest rib tool in the whole world. Oh, Mud Tools, you're wonderful. I'm going to attach the bottom the same way, but it's a little bigger than I want, so I'm going to trim it down with my felting knife and trim off some of the excess. Refine, refine, refine. I'm gonna stick it where I want it stuck and mark it, and then take it back off. I like this camper needle tool because sometimes it's useful to have a shorter metal end like that, and there's also a shaping tool on the other end. These hole punch tools I use all the time. I personally prefer them to the handled hole punches because it's so easy to pop the clay right out of them, and you get several sizes all sold together like that. It helps a lot to twist your hole punch as you push it into the clay. This is where the excess water will drain. I'm going to score it just like before, attach it, and clean up that seam with my brush again, and also clean up the edges of the holes that I made inside the pot. Before I add the rest of the holes I need, I'm going to add some texture. This is one of the many really simple wood tools that I use on my work. I have tons of them. Probably use them more than anything else I have. Most of mine I've had for years, so there's probably a mix of brands. I know a lot of them are Kemper, and there's also a ton of Jack Richardson boxwood tools that you can get from Clay King that are just like the ones that I use every day. I like this Kemper tool because I like the rounded tip. It won't gouge into the clay so much when I pull it down like that. I also use a lot of rubber and silicone ended tools. This Wipeout tool is a lot stiffer than my other ones, which has been great for defining edges like this when the clay is leather hard, and it's double ended. I'm using it to refine that edge and clean up where my marks end, so it's organic, but my marks don't look sloppy or arbitrary. That's how things look so far, but I've still got a few more things to do before I'm done. I have measured out thirds on my banding wheel that I went over with a Sharpie, and this makes it so much easier to plot out the distance of the holes accurately so it doesn't have a wobbly wampus hang to it when I string it. Also, I put 3 feet on a lot of my pots, so it helps me with that too. These little holes in the drainage compartment on the bottom are what's gonna let water evaporate out of that, and I'm gonna put 3 of them around the pot. These are my stamps I sign my work with that I just made from clay, carved with a needle tool and bisque fired. I have a small one and a teeny baby one. I'm gonna use the teeny baby one. Just gonna score the area a bit. Pop on a little button of clay and push that in with my stamp. Boop. Now everything's put together and I have my holes punched. But wait, there's more. We ain't done yet. There's still some cleanup to do, which I'm gonna do with my damp brush. I'm gonna soften the edges of the holes because I don't want that sharp edge cutting into whatever cord I use to hang it with. And I'm gonna clean up all those little clay boogers that are giving my pot a bunch of sharp bits, and they might cut somebody, and they just make my texture look kind of sloppy. Running a damp brush over all of that will make it look much more refined, and you can see the difference here between the finished section and the unfinished section. I'm gonna soften those holes down there too, just looks nicer. And now I am ready to let it dry so it can be bisque fired. This is one that's all finished. I gave this one an extra layer just by rolling out a small coil and placing it around the rim, and then I just smoothed down half of it and it sort of leaves that edge. And that really nice green glaze is a Mako glaze called Olive Float, which is sold by Clay King also. And that dog barking is my dog. Hi, Zazzy. Hope this all was helpful. Thank you for watching.